Hey, I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe, please hit like, and I'm working on the Ladies of Waltham size 0, and I'm assembling this watch today. So I've already cleaned it. I ended up cleaning this watch by hand. There weren't a lot of parts, but it needed some attention. I didn't want to put this in a cleaning machine, so I did the cleaning by hand. I used lighter fluid to clean this, and now I'm going through the oiling. I'm trying to oil the setting mechanism here, which was a little bit grindy, so I have to figure this out. I'm being very careful with the type of oil. I'm testing the mechanism here to make sure it works properly, and I'm looking where all the friction points are when I push that in with the bench key, just keeping an eye on where I think all the friction points might be and making sure I'm oiling those friction points. I'm putting the mainspring back in and just making sure that it's spinning well, and oiling the edge where the arbor for the mainspring contacts the actual barrel, so I've got good lubrication there. And then I go ahead and start assembling all the separate parts of this watch. I was like, wait, not yet. So this is the escape wheel. Put the escape wheel in, find its hole. Then I put the fourth wheel in, and that's got the pivot for the seconds hand. And I put that in place, make sure it's touching the pinion. I've got good contact, and the intermediate wheel kind of looks like it goes upside down, but it doesn't. And it's basically all pinions up for this installation. And then I decided, okay, I got to actually put the a little lubrication on the setting mechanism and make sure that thing, when I rotate it around, it does well. I use Rodico to remove additional lubrication. If I put too much on, I just remove some of that with Rodico to make sure I don't over lubricate here. And this, I just lubricated where where the arbor goes into the hole on the main plate there. And then I'll just make sure that these wheels are all in place before I put any screws in place, and I'll just use a piece of pegwood here to hold the plate down while I put the screws in. And I do everything one at a time, so I won't take 3 screws and lay them in and then tighten 3 screws. That's not the way I work. And now I've got these screws, and they're in there nice and snug. I'm making sure, just touching that center wheel, that I've got some action on those gears, and that they in fact will be rotating properly. And here I'm putting in the secondary plate. It's a, what do they call it, a 3/4 movement, I think is the name of it. And I'm just making sure that these the pivots for these wheels will find home. It's a little tricky under camera. Normally I just put the screws in lightly and then tap them sideways, and I think I do hold it up in a second to do that. So I just want to put these in, but I don't tighten them at all. I put them in. The minute I feel any resistance, I stop and back it off just a bit, so the plate's just sort of sitting there. It's not in there tight at all. And then I'm able to take this and tilt it, and when I tilt it, I have a device I've bought at the local craft store that I usually poke the shafts with, and here I've got them in place and everything worked, and I just have to rotate that and make sure that's working too. And once I know that all of the pivots are in the holes, I'm pretty confident I can tighten that down and start oiling some of the wells here for each one of the pivots, the oil wells for each one of the pivots. So I do that, make sure it's nicely oiled but not over oiled, as you can have other problems. So here I'm just checking the setting mechanism, make sure that still works and there's no issue. It's a little bit grindy when you push it in, but it's just because it's probably 100 years old or more. And here I'm oiling the inside, because that inside of the crown wheel is going to rub against that. I've got that piece of metal with a screw on it, the cam that's there. So that's going to rub on that, so I'll put a little bit of oil on it, and then I put a little bit of oil on the outside one as well, because this rides in. There's a groove in that finds where that screw is on the top, and then when Mama's got her groove, man. So there we go. And this is not a backward screw. This is a normally tightened screw. Once I get it in there, I just test it to make sure that the crown wheel actually turns, and it'll drive this wheel here. So here you just move the movement around to make sure that the square part of the arbor of the mainspring barrel is lined up with the ratchet wheel. So this is a ratchet wheel going in. The groove for the screw in the ratchet wheel was extremely shallow, so I was trying to be very careful putting this in. I don't want to strip it because I don't want problems to happen here. Then I noticed that I'd loosened that up because the teeth of the two wheels, one was on top of the other, and that's not good. So once I got it running, no problem. And then I ran the train, as it's called. So that's running the train to make sure that all the wheels are spinning well, and it worked really well, as you can see. So there's no problem there at all. Now I've got the pallet fork. So the problem I had with the pallet fork initially, as you see me, I'll say farting around with the pallet fork, is that I actually had it upside down. I looked at where the dart was on the pallet fork, and I thought it was supposed to be on the bottom, but in this case it's not. It's on the top of this pallet fork. So the pallet fork was in fact upside down. So I kept very carefully trying to put this pallet fork in place. And of course it wouldn't fit in the lower pivot because it was backwards. But what I did not do is force the part. So the whole time I was trying to get in place, I was just very gentle and seeing it should just slip into place, and it just wasn't slipping into place. So when you take a watch apart, take a picture so you actually understand where that pallet fork, where it needs to be with respect to its upside downness. so I didn't do that time, and I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong here? This is stupid. And I realized, oh, okay, the guard, the finger is on the other side. You moron, fix it. So I fixed it. I turned that around, and then I was able to take the bridge and get that in place. This is kind of dainty work too when you're putting a bridge in place like this, and they don't go in easy, but you get better at it as you work it. And just make sure that the plates are touching, so the bridge is actually touching the lower plate, and then you know the thing is in place, and make sure you can see the pivot on the top of the pallet fork. The bottom pivot was in already, but I made sure I see the top of the pallet fork, and then just do one of the screws first, and that'll keep the pallet fork down. Then you can test it. Here I've got some Mobius. This is Mobius. What is it called? Mobius 9415, and it's kind of a gel, and you put it on the actual jewel for the pallet fork, on both the jewels, and it provides some lubrication for those jewels as they hit the feet of the escape wheel, and it works really well. So I just very anal retentively applied this to the pallet fork. Then I wound it up a bit, and then see if it's kind of a snap I get on the pallet fork, and yeah, there we go. It's talking to me, so this is good. Now I didn't show this because I thought I was taping, but I wasn't, so I ended up taking the balance cock off, and I wanted to clean the mainspring, or the hairspring, on this particular watch, so I just put it in my little container that I always use, and filled it up with lighter fluid. Then I just agitated it, and that's not teasing it like you did with your little brother. It's using this device here and agitating it by blowing air in there and just agitating it a lot. Once I did this for a while, everything sped up. I left it for quite a while, and after I did that, then I brought my blower back out again, and I started blowing on it while I was holding the spring so it wouldn't fly away, to help evaporate all of the lighter fluid. You can just leave it if you're going to be away for an hour because it'll evaporate quite quickly, but I wanted to get this thing done. I thought I could whip this into shape, get the jewel out for the upper balance, and everything would be fine. I looked at the upper balance jewel and cap jewel, and they kind of looked okay, but I saw two lines inside when I looked from the bottom up, and I saw two lines. I was like, okay, this is not good. Normally when you see two lines, you end up with a cracked jewel, and this is probably what was causing the watch problems. So at the end of the day, there are two things wrong. First one was the screw that's closest to you right now that you're looking at. When the watch is facing that way, that screw was not even, the threads weren't even contacting the metal on the inside. So I could turn that until the cows come home, nothing would happen. The other screw was good. So the main problem with this watch was that the jewel was cracked. So the upper balanced jewel was cracked. So those lines were actually cracked. So I needed to do some jewel hunting to repair this.